So the next topic I want to talk about is the Xbox and PlayStation showcases. So I've titled this one Showcase Showdown, Xbox versus PlayStation, Style over Substance. And my thought on the last Xbox showcase and PlayStation State of Play, the one during E3, were basically around content, what their actual focus was. Obviously, big items like Starfield.
Yeah, yeah.
I would say items that went under the radar like League of Legends, Final Fantasy, VR, and the general approach. And what I thought was that Xbox and PlayStation are using very different styles of marketing. And in their showcase formats, different. Sony are following a Nintendo-like formula with State of Play, but they're also getting really unpredictable. You don't know what they're going to do next, really. So what I thought we'd do first is basically just look at, what Game Pass has in store for us. And during the Xbox showcase, they talked about the release schedule between June 2022 and June 2023. So a full year. But you're looking at it, you can clearly see Xbox, loads of games, loads of value, no doubt. As we know, most of the first party going to be day on date, no surprises.
Yeah.
But what you will see is that for some of the really big third party games, they're not exclusive. I shouldn't say exclusive, but they're not day and date on Game Pass.
Yeah.
And in many cases, they're not even on Game Pass. And if you look at it, what can I say on 2022? For instance, the Callisto Protocol, not on Game Pass. Overwatch 2, ironically, not on Game Pass. Elder Scrolls Online, I think this is the High Isle, again, not on Game Pass. 2023, Diablo, the new Diablo 4, not on Game Pass. Resident Evil 4, I guess this is the remake or the remaster, not on Game Pass. And then Dead Space, not on Game Pass. I guess what I'm trying to say here is some of the really big third-party games are not on Game Pass and not day and date.
Yeah. Is that because of the thing that you're showing in your graphics? Is that because they're just releases that you've tagged there, and they're just not intending to have it as a Game Pass on Xbox, or is it actually available on PC or something?
No, this is an absolute kind of Xbox slide. If it's not tagged with Game Pass, it means it's just not going to make an appearance on the service.
Got it.
And you're going to have to basically buy the thing.
Yeah, but you'd expect things like Diablo 4. That's too big of a game to give away essentially on the Game Pass.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. But that's not the thinking with a lot of people, if you know what I mean. It's kind of almost Game Pass is no game is too big. That's not the thinking that people are applying to this. And the realities might be a little different to what the fantasy is. And only time will tell. I mean, things might change, obviously. There's nothing to say that once the Activision Blizzard acquisition is done, that Diablo 4, hey, it could be on Game Pass, it could be day on day. There's nothing to say that it won't happen from that perspective. But right now, based on what they've published, not the case. And it's the really big third-party games. It's the really big ones.
Yeah.
So that's Xbox. They definitely have the numbers, and they have more, no doubt about that. Yeah. It's a numbers game, no doubt about that, and they definitely have more. Now Sony, I've said Sony are absolutely being unpredictable. Obviously, their state of play was very short and sharp, very games focused. But there were some notable, let's say, news items that I wondered to myself, why isn't this in the state of play or rolled into the state of play so to make it a bigger showcase? And that part was confusing. And that's why I'm saying Sony's a bit unpredictable. Like do Sony even know what they're going to do next?
Yeah, are they even talking to each other?
Yeah, really unclear, really. For instance, God of War Ragnarok launches, 9th of November 2022. Once I understood it. This could have been their Starfield moment in the showcase,
Yeah.
for instance. But it was basically announced totally separately. A blog post, a YouTube video, all the usual suspects. Then you had this new PlayStation Plus, the new tiers they have that launched globally. This would have been part of their showcase in previous generations, I'm pretty sure of it.
Yeah.
And the timing was around about right as well. But yeah, again, video on YouTube, blog post, that was it. Fairly standard. And the last item was around in-zone gaming products. For PC, primarily, I think, and PS5.
Yeah.
Now, looking at the, let's say, design language they've used on these products, and it's really headphones and monitors, it's very PS5, it's very PlayStation VR.
Yeah.
White on black, if you like.
Yeah.
But again, couldn't this have been part of any kind of, PlayStation showcase? But instead, it seemed like Sony was going their own way with this.
Yeah.
It's almost a separate division from what I can tell.
It looks like it, right? And the style will be different too, and that says a few things, right? In terms of that, we've been discussing it a few times on the podcast around, a one Sony kind of view, but it doesn't feel connected.
Well, it's connected in that there are some, let's say, PS5 specific features to the product, but the idea seems to be branding it separately from the console.
Yeah, but like you say, the color style looks very PS5, so they must have been talking to each other. It just seems that someone else was responsible for it, so they announced it separately under their own product line.
I think it's a separate product line, which is quite strange. But again, the way it was announced, quite strange. It could have been rolled up into a showcase. And if you think that PlayStation is going a bit more PC, separate product line or not, how would that have mattered? If you know what I mean? It wouldn't have been a chalk and cheese kind of like, it wouldn't have been jarring at all, I would say, to include it.
Yeah.
And this is where I find Sony's way of doing things strange.
Yeah.
It's unpredictable. Very unpredictable. Even with PSVR being showcased in Sony, not PlayStation's event, in CES 2022. That was strange.
Yeah.
So what I thought I'd do, really, aside from really just trying to get a sense of how Xbox and Sony were handling their showcases, I also looked at 2022 and I really stacked up the games on 3 consoles. Xbox/PC in one bucket, PlayStation/PC in the other bucket, and Nintendo.
Yeah.
Again, this is my own opinion, but what I said is I'll list out the notable 2022 releases for first, second, and third party. Anything that's exclusive or heavily marketed, or games with some history. For instance, like a Mario or a Sonic or something along those lines. Now, looking at 2022, looking down the Xbox, part of the release schedule, it doesn't look very full. Not terrible in my book, but not very full. Jan seemed to be more or less dead. My only notable game there was Rainbow Six Extraction. Or was it Siege Extraction? Can't even remember now. Then we obviously had Elden Ring in February. Destiny 2, The Witch Queen. The new King of Fighters, Dying Light 2, Stay Human.
Yeah, I was gonna say the only thing from your list there is it's literally that one in May. Well, I mean, nothing else came out for anyone else, but that's the only thing that seems to be exclusive, right? And
what did Microsoft have? It was Flight Simulator, and I think it was the Top Gun expansion. But I mean, if you look down the list, you will clearly see that really, aside from May, it looks like for this year, up till June, let's say, they've been basically living off third-party software. Obviously, in Nintendo's case, they're talking about a lot of kind of first or second-party games here. Pokemon, you've got Triangle Strategy, the Chocobo game, Kirby, Rune Factory, your Nintendo Switch Sports, Mario Strikers came out, all of those sorts of things. And Sony, on the other hand, obviously had a much busier January especially for the PC, where they
Yeah.
released, God of War, Uncharted for PS5 and PC, Dying Light 2, King of Fighters, Destiny 2, Elden Ring, but they had Sifu in Horizon Forbidden West in February.
Yeah, yeah.
Then, March, everybody gets Assassin's Creed, the new WWE game, Grand Theft Auto. Did I say Grand Theft Auto? I think this is the remaster, right? Or the one for the new consoles. Tiny Tina's Wonderland, and a Final Fantasy game. I think Stranger Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin. But then PlayStation has Gran Turismo, Ghostwire Tokyo, and a Persona game.
Yeah, but generally the first part of a year is generally quiet. I guess most of these are, well, except for stuff like re-releases and remasters, etc. I suspect most of these would have been releases that should have happened late end of last year, and they've just all slipped right into this year, into the beginning. Because a lot of these studios normally will kind of go towards Q3, Q4 in order to go for Game of the Year and stuff and keep it fresh in people's minds.
Yeah, I don't know if the Game of the Year stuff is such an important thing. I think these days they kind of tend to, they've got the market information and the numbers and the stats to say when is it good to release. Yeah. Then they've also got the release schedule for other titles, and I think they're kind of moving things around to accommodate that.
Yeah.
I think it's less about awards and it's just more about kind of, how many of these kind of let's say software titles can we sell in the first month or two, of release. But I guess what I'm trying to say here is that, for all three consoles, it's not to say that it's been super busy this year, but there is literally nothing that I would say is very notable on the Xbox currently in terms of first party.
Yeah.
Obviously, it has the same kind of third party, games as everybody else, but it's kind of like food for thought. It's kind of like, well, what are you putting on Game Pass in that case?
Well, I think that was the thing, right? They rushed Halo in, and people were hoping that was going to actually do well, which it doesn't. I don't think it's done particularly well, and I think there's still problems with it. And maybe they were hoping that would have been good enough to tide over into later this year and for other things, where that Starfield, etc.
Absolutely. Now, looking at the second half of the year, I don't really think it changes much. The footprint's very similar. July, we're seeing F1 2022. There's Stray for PlayStation and PC.
Yeah.
We're getting Saints Row and Destroy All Humans come out in August. Pretty much on both Xbox and PlayStation. But we're getting Spider-Man on PC.
Yeah.
Remastered. And Rollerdrome, PlayStation and PC, which they showcased.
Yeah.
And obviously there's I think, remastered or remade version of Destroy All Humans 2. Reprobed. Into September, pretty much the same sort of story. A little bit more interesting. We have the third party releases for Lord of the Rings Gollum, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle, Still Rising, and Evil West, which I actually think looks quite interesting. But on Xbox, they've got Warhammer 40,000 Dark Tide, which is very like Vermintide, from the same people like Fat Shark. Then Valkyrie Elysium and The Last of Us Part 1 for PlayStation. And Splatoon 3 comes out on Nintendo Switch, in September.
Yeah.
Going into October, everybody's getting Overwatch. Literally everybody. A Plague Tale Requiem's out on all platforms, but it's worth noting that on the Xbox that's day on date. Yeah. Marvel's Midnight Suns comes out. Gotham Knights. Star Ocean, The Divine Force.
Yeah.
Xbox finally gets Persona, right, 5. But this is the month in October we're going to get Modern Warfare 2. And I think the Xbox gets Scorn, which is, again, another Game Pass day on date game. And what's notable here is that Forspoken was actually slated for an October release, but now it's been moved to Q1 2023. And I think people are thinking that's more to do with it colliding with other notable games, in the month. For Switch, they're getting a version of Persona 5 Royal as well, Mario plus Rabbids, Sparks of Hope, and I think they're getting No Man's Sky as well, and Nier Automata. So, quite a strong month for Nintendo, I think. November, a bit of a dead month, but that's when God of War Ragnarok hits. Nintendo gets, a new Pokemon game, and then Callisto Protocol in December for Xbox and PlayStation, and a Dragon Quest game for Nintendo. So there you have it. I mean, when it's all said and done, not terribly strong, really.
Not from any of them. I don't think it's like, well, apart from maybe,
No.
God of War is always a big one, but they're all just a bit. Yeah. What else? Is there anything else?
Yeah, I mean, it does just feels like that Sony is still playing the kind of exclusive game. They're doing a little bit more of that. But it's interesting, and it kind of almost feels like Microsoft are a bit of a holding pattern, and Nintendo are just doing what they've always done.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because Microsoft are also still trying to get all their purchases and lineup, and that whole lineup kind of geared up properly. So, it's still going to take them a while, I guess, once they get the exclusives in and some kind of big ones under their belt.
I think you're right. Because what I did, after going through some of the notable releases, I effectively just chopped it down and based it on what were exclusives. If you're looking at it for this year, there's a real paltry number of exclusives I can see on the Xbox from that that notable list I put together. Significantly more for PlayStation and Nintendo. I mean, significantly more.
Yeah.
3 times as much, if I'm being generous. It's an interesting food for thought, really.
Yeah, but I think it is just that kind of build up. Maybe there'll be some more coming from Microsoft once they've got things in line. But again, I think maybe this is all still the impacts of COVID and other things kind of going on, which has left us in a pretty quiet 22.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I mean, there's obviously conversations around whether Microsoft can actually manage all of these studios and maintain that cadence they need. I mean, I thought it was going to be a kind of AAA title once a month, but it's more like every quarter. I think was really, to correct myself, the real cadence we're talking about. But even that, at the moment, feels extremely challenging. But after I saw the showcases, I thought definitely a few things up for discussion here. I thought to myself, look, Microsoft do have games.
Yeah.
But right now, it does feel like it's more and more about 2023 and 2024. And that's when we're going to really see things kind of heat up somewhat.
Yeah.
And I don't know what you think about that, but I don't think they've got all their ducks in a row in terms of their first-party studios. Definitely not.
Yeah, no, I think again, with all these sort of purchases and other things, it always has this takeover delay of things that will happen. People move around. It doesn't surprise me, these sorts of things. And again, we're just on that kind of tail end of recovering from COVID, and there's still parts of the world which still hasn't quite got there anyway. So, there's other distractions in the world too, which no doubt is causing other issues as well. So, it doesn't surprise me 22 being quiet. I'm probably still in that interesting period where I don't own either the Xbox or the PlayStation 5, and I still don't see the need just yet. If something like PSVR 2 is out, that might be enough to kick me into gear, and a few other things, but I'm still not seeing it.
Yeah, it's difficult because definitely games are coming out. It's just that it doesn't feel like there's enough of a big cadence of them in. It still kind of feels that we're in that moment in time where we clearly haven't left the old generation behind yet.
Yeah.
So we're not fully leveraging the new technology. That's definitely not happening. Yeah, I think the cat will be put amongst the pigeons if by 2023 Microsoft still haven't got their act together.
Yeah.
Then there will be another kind of conversation. The other thing that struck me with the showcase is them being so different. Is really, I felt the Xbox leadership are people that you actually want to listen to. They're like the old PlayStation leadership, right? Well, whereas a PlayStation, they seem to be devoid of any kind of interesting personalities. Maybe apart from Sony, if you're into technology. I mean, you have Phil Spencer and Sarah Bond, and you want to listen to those guys speak. Yeah. And I wondered to myself, is that why, that PlayStation is so devoid of personality when they're doing their showcases? There's literally no one to put up on stage, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, it does depend, right? You do need those charismatic leaders, presenters, and those sorts of things, right? But you also need the ones that can actually deliver stuff, right? So, you don't want to, how should I say, Todd Howards everywhere. So,
yeah,
you need a balance.
Yeah, there definitely is that. One thing that I felt was really underreported, and maybe something that wasn't given enough kudos to Xbox, for is this whole League of Legends deal they struck. I felt was very interesting. It's obviously a free-to-play game, right? Yeah. But what they did is that they gave every champion they made it available in Game Pass.
Oh, as a what? Like a free unlock as a result of having Game Pass?
Correct. So obviously they couldn't give away the game, but what they did was give away every champion that was available.
Because normally what you'd have to do is you either pay for unlocking them, or you grinded enough of the game in order to unlock them and stuff. Which is interesting way of doing it.
I wish they had actually made a bit more out of that, because I kind of felt to myself, well, that's and I didn't cotton on to it initially, but when I did, I thought to myself, that's a really interesting way of bringing value to Game Pass.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like giving you access to a battle pass or something in order to give that a boosted free-to-play experience, right?
Yeah, exactly, and I kind of wish Sony would do something similar. It's a great idea, great idea. But yeah, again, I don't think Microsoft are giving enough kudos for that, so I'm just calling that out. We often think to ourselves how these services might pan out. We know that Sony are trying to create 10 or so live service games by 2026. They've got services in terms of something that's Game Pass-like.
Yeah.
This might be a good way of making their premium tier a bit more premium.
Yeah, if they can do stuff like that in terms of live service and bonuses and DLC, that's as a result of that, it's great stuff. I mean, you can get that stuff from. It's quite interesting. With Amazon Prime and Twitch, you can get kind of Twitch and Amazon Prime gaming exclusives by watching streams and stuff and drops that will go into your games and stuff. So it's quite an interesting thing. Just a Prime subscription resulting in Twitch subscription can give you some of these things.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. And whilst I was watching the Xbox showcase, I did think to myself, when you guys have these 20 or so studios going at a really kind of steady cadence, maybe what you should be doing is doing a showcase specifically for one or a number of them, rather than going through this particular format we were given, where you had the main showcase the first day that was follow a very kind of usual format, game announcements, maybe kind of Phil Spencer or Sarah Bond or the guys from kind of Bethesda saying a few words.
Yeah.
But other than that, trailer and some gameplay.
Yeah.
And it's a fairly mixed grouping of kind of like games as well. And it might be an interesting way of kind of providing a bit more kind of like focus and cohesion.
Yeah.
That's food for thought. Maybe something for the future. On Sony, I think them doing big showcases is gonna get rare. Right? I'm thinking about why. And I thought, is Sony actually doing enough?
But maybe that's because, again, I think we talked about in the past, right? Them being the leaders of the market in general, and various, if the competition isn't keeping up to pace anyway, why do they have to do anything? Why do they have to do all these big grand things? And maybe they just don't have to. Maybe they can just drop the odd YouTube video, drop the odd the odd blog here and there on or Twitter post, and maybe that's sufficient. Maybe that's sufficient enough for the news outlets and others to pick up on it and write something for them and do all the work.
That's what I thought, Al.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking, is PlayStation doing enough? Yeah, because the numbers they see are speaking to them, and they're saying you are doing enough.
Yeah.
If you look at some of the YouTube numbers they post, someone was saying the other day that God of War Ragnarok was pretty much one of the most watched videos, I think, on the internet of this year. Something stupid like that. And then you can do a comparison with the numbers they hit versus other people.
Yeah.
We're talking significant differences. I mean, we're talking a massive delta here.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, right? They'll look at it and go, why do we need to put all that effort to have a paid for presenter and all this sort of stuff, when actually the YouTube video, the preview, the trailer, whatever the hell it is, speaks enough for itself. You don't need to do anything else but just show those sorts of things and let it go.
Yeah, I think maybe that's the thinking. I mean, though I do wish they'd kind of like somehow give it a little bit more structure to some of what they're doing, because it's like right now it's like a bunch of satellite kind of marketing, plans going in parallel or whatnot. I think really it kind of sums up Jim Ryan's PlayStation current day. Just before the PlayStation 5 was launched, he did, the whole Xbox versus PlayStation thing was kicking in, the specs war was kicking off. He did say, we'll just let the games do the talking. Yeah. But my original thought was, is that because you lack any sort of personality or leadership? I wasn't sure on that either.
I think it's maybe a bit of both, right? But maybe it's more... I think it says a lot, right? And it is true. It's rather than doing all this other work to try and hype up something. Here is just the good finished artifact. Why do we need to mess around with all this stuff? And just let it speak for itself.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to say, I did feel the PlayStation 5 announcement worked well, and I did think that kind of showcase they actually did do, that was very, I would say it's kind of like, it's just an extended state of play, if I'm being totally honest. Yeah, I thought that worked. But yeah, it's just an interesting one. I mean, PlayStation just become very, very unpredictable. You don't know what they're going to do next. I mean, they've got out that loyalty program now, PlayStation Stars, and I think they've gone on record to say some of the rewards you get, not NFTs.
Good.
Yeah, they've said that. But the theory that I kind of I'm starting to have with Sony, I just wonder if you're gonna see some of that within their own ecosystem one day, because of the live service games.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing. I mean, you may not, if you have to have an in-game currency, if you have a loyalty program, you have a service, and you have it's kind of, I mean, PlayStation semi-walled garden, isn't it? Kind of makes sense to me that you could take your currency and use it for different games. Yeah, and we kind of talked about the metaverse, and you need something to glue that stuff together.
Yeah. But they've kind of had that before with many things, like whether it's PlayStation points, Xbox points, and all these other things. You can kind of do it like that. You don't have to use distributed ledger tech or anything to do that stuff. These digital currencies or digital kind of points have been there for a long, long time, well before the basics of distributed ledger tech.
Yeah, it's within your own ecosystem though, which just makes it a lot easier. And I'm just thinking that would be a way of kind of I don't know what else to call it building a metaverse, but. Certainly having some online services and online games with some commonality. Yeah, and so that would be interesting to see. And I kind of heard that PlayStation Stars, is it, this loyalty program?
Right.
I thought the idea was that you can get some sort of monetary kind of rewards for playing games, and then don't know if that was true or not, but that's just what I heard.
Yeah, Yeah, because you could do you had stuff like I think Ubisoft had one as well where you could unlock DLC and stuff. If they can do that for again PlayStation or Xbox, then it just makes it more powerful, more reason to play, more reason to collect, more reason to be loyal to that brand.
Yeah, but imagine you could grind out some currency in one game just so you could use it in another, if you know what I mean. And there were maybe events in one game where you double,
or
the amount
exchange
you earn.
exchange it,
Yeah,
right? Currency
correct,
exchange across your various
correct.
games.
Yeah, FX, yeah, all of that sort of stuff, right? So very interesting stuff. That I mean, the other talking point would be like Starfield. I mean, you being kind of like having played quite a lot of quite a few Bethesda games. I mean, what did you make of it?
Um, Still missing. Oh, actually, I think I like the idea of it showing more RPG elements, more classic ones. It did look more and more like a kind of a Bethesda game eventually, but I don't know if they've done a reset on it or something. And it just still needs. Yeah, I'll still wait for it to be complete. And it's looking okay. But we'll have to see because I think they've also done stuff like what? Then they redact the whole flying out into space and stuff. They just do a loading screen to move you out into space and stuff. But at least you can move from one place to the other and stuff.
I mean, you think there were people being unfair by saying, "Why does it look like No Man's Sky?" And to be honest, it did. I mean, to the uninitiated, perhaps it absolutely did. But I mean, the question mark is, could the game have looked any different based on what it was? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I think, and this is I think the other problem will be stuff like, the promises of handcrafted planets and stuff.
No way.
I can't imagine they've handcrafted them all, and there'll be some levels of auto generation and stuff. So, how realistic and how alive they really are, we'll have to wait and see.
Well, they have got procedural generation in their games, yeah, and there's nothing to say that just because you can visit a planet that it has to be like a thriving kind of planet or anything like that. It could be just something they put there for mining.
Which was unfortunately the similar sort of problems that No Man's Sky had, and again they had similar promises at the beginning. They've came good when some of them at least, but nowhere near even from what they were selling at the beginning.
Yeah, definitely. I just wonder these 1,000 planets. I think they're talking about. What it would mean for modders. Yeah, because you can imagine, right, that a fair majority of these planets will be really, barren or bare.
Yeah,
I'm
just expecting it to be. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the handcrafted planets, a number of them obviously will be handcrafted, and those will be a bit more depthy and richer.
Yeah, probably ones where you have a main quest or a side quest or something.
Correct.
But then there'll be other planets that just don't have nothing on it.
Yeah, where you go to mine resources, whatever else. Watched it a couple of times, and I thought so. God, am I being unfair here? I mean, how else? I mean, don't get me wrong. I thought the frame rate was choppy, but it's Bethesda. It looked a bit too much like No Man's Sky, but
yeah, that's what I mean. That it looked more like a Bethesda game. Is when I looked at it, I was like, yeah, okay, that's feeling more Bethesda-like now.
Yeah, and I did also think, like, maybe I'm wrong in saying this, but I'm sure I've seen other Bethesda trailers where the main character's kind of like walking around doing some of this sort of stuff. You know what I mean?
But,
is it any different?
Well, yeah, it's classic Fallout style. They're just rolling in slowly into a land. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. It reminded me of Fallout trailers. Yeah. So I didn't know what to expect. But Microsoft, God, it was. And sometimes I thought to myself, this is dumb. Because they had basically, in terms of, let's say, games, quite a strong showing. It wasn't definitely was strong. But then you basically put Starfield towards the end of it, and it's not looking great.
Ooh, is it a repeat of their Halo? You know, because Halo got a massive when they kind of initially kind of showcased it as well. It got a massive panning associated with it, right? So maybe it's what they need to shake it up a bit.
Yeah, it's not quite like that, but you know, it's something similar.
Mm-hmm.
But I just wonder who watches these showcases. You know, do you guys QA any of this stuff before you let it out to the public? You know, because basically you know you're only as good as your last job, sort of thing. So you know that for me was quite weird. But yeah, I mean, you know, what can I say? So you know, Microsoft and Sony have absolutely very different kind of ways of doing these showcases.
Mm-hmm.
You know, no two ways about it. You know, you might say that Xbox is playing catch up, so there's an element they have to try harder. Whereas PlayStation seemingly have got really big numbers, a lot of business intelligence reporting over those numbers, and they're thinking, well, it's working for us now. Why should we change it?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's definitely true. I think in my mind, and you know, let's give kudos to Xbox for doing this whole League of Legends. Giving you every champion via Game Pass. And you know what? I think Sony will copy it because I think they're gonna have to copy it, having 10 live service games by 2026.
Yeah, they will have to do something similar. I think. Again, because of these free-to-play games, you're going to have to follow a similar model of giving them something, a reason to have your service.
Correct. Okay, Al, any last thoughts on the showcases?
Nah, I just hope we get a stronger 23, or maybe some surprises for the end of 22.
You know, there's still a number of months to go. We never know, right? I mean, Jim Ryan might basically surprise us with a good few things. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, with that said and done, let's move on to the next topic.